Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Opinions, and once again, we're not alone, are we, mate?
No, and we haven't just got one guest drinker with us, Steve. We've got two. But I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Over to our guest drinkers.
Hello, I'm Julie from Neptune Brewery.
And I'm Les, also from Neptune Brewery, would you believe?
Well, welcome to the show, folks. It's great to have you along. You've been very kind to send us some beers to feature this week, and we absolutely love it when we get to feature beers and have the brewer on at the same time to talk about those beers, because it means that we don't have to do anything. We can literally just sit back and enjoy the beer. So we're going to be drinking 3 of your beers this evening. Tell us what the first one is that we're going to be drinking tonight.
The first one is Single-Handed Sailor. This has actually been brewed before, but only once, and it was brewed for draft only, cask and keg. But it proved very popular. It's a hazy tropical pale. It proved very popular, so we thought, you know what, we're going to throw this in the can. And yeah, the cans are selling really well. It's got Citra and Summit hops, so it's got that bit of juiciness in it, orange zest coming through, some citrus notes there, some grapefruit, but it's not got a long finish because it's a pale. It's quite short on the finish, but it's really flavoursome and it's quite light as well. Only comes in at 4.2%.
Sounds absolutely delicious. Can we try some, please?
Go for it.
Get going.
Cheers.
Cheers.
What do you think, Steve?
I think Julie's description was bang on. The first thing you get from it, you get this massive tropical hit on it.
On the aroma.
Yeah, and on that first sort of like mouthfeel, that first taste on it as well, that tropicalness is there, carries right through to the finish. There's a little bit of bitterness on the finish, a little bit of dryness there. The tropical notes hang around for a bit, and then they're gone. Like you say, it's a very short finish on it. It's really light. It's really, really easy to drink at 4.2%. What about you, mate?
Agree with all of that. I was getting a little bit of earthiness as well. I can definitely see the cask type qualities in the beer with that slightly earthy, woody feel to it. But yeah, it's lovely tropical notes, but it's still quite light. It's their light pale ale, but with the tropical hit rather than being maybe a bit too thick, a bit too juicy. Hazy is probably the accurate descriptor for it, for looking at it, rather than that full-on juice bomb. It's really rather nice, and I don't see how this is going to last long, especially not in your glass, Steve, which has that big hole in it.
It does. Yeah. We better crack on, otherwise I am going to drink this before we've even really got chatting to our guests this evening. Our listeners will know that we obviously got to try some of your beers previously back in the summer, which again, we was very grateful that you sent those down to us to try, and we did really enjoy those. And it's fantastic that from that moment you kind of came back to us and said, oh, can we come on the show and talk to you about the brewery? And was like, yes, absolutely, please do. So this is your opportunity. Julie, Les, tell us about, before we get into the brewery, tell us about your kind of journeys into beer. Where did the rabbit hole open for you guys?
For me, it was probably maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, 10, 12 years possibly. I was a Guinness drinker, as probably a lot of people were at the time. And I was introduced to real ale in the Ship of Mitre in Liverpool. And I was like, ooh, this tastes nice. And basically went on from there. So a couple of years just drinking, generic, sorts of real ales. And then there was a bar opened up in Liverpool called the 23 Club, which opened up in 2012. And it was the first craft beer bar in Liverpool. Much lamented now, because unfortunately it's no longer there. But they were instrumental in bringing a lot of the American beers over, beers from Europe, Scandinavia, and obviously all the new stuff that was coming out of the UK. I literally just got hooked from being in there. Obviously all the sort of Jaipur and sort of Magic Rock doing their stuff at the time. And it was just, the taste coming out of the flavours out of these beers and that was literally what got me really hooked into it. At the same time, we were mingling with other people in the Liverpool beer scene, sort of fledgling breweries like Mad Hatter at the time and stuff like that. And so we sort of got involved in that sort of circle. And the rest history from where I sit.
Mine's much the same as Les. I was a cider drinker from the age of 16 up until 40 something. I was a cider drinker and I never really entertained beer. It was only when we started going to a lot more festivals and Les said, why don't you try beer? And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. And it just sort of went from there. The first styles of beer I like were dark, stouts and porters. I found were more to my taste at the time. And that, it was about 12 years ago. And when 23 opened up, again, it was a fantastic opportunity to try so many different beers from different countries, not the UK, as Les has alluded to. And it's just sort of stemmed from there, really.
So how did it take the leap from being people that enjoyed drinking beer to deciding that you were going to open a brewery and start selling beer? When did all that happen?
Les had a midlife crisis.
Definitely a midlife crisis.
Instead of buying a Porsche, she wanted to open a bloody brewery.
I mean, again, seriously, we were sort of, again, going back to the 23 Club, they had monthly Meet the Brewers. And again, it was early days of Beavertown, it was Harbour, Weirbeard. And when you did the Meet the Brewer, you actually got to meet the brewer. It wasn't meet the sales rep and whatever else. And you could see the passion in these people and, what they were doing and bringing all these flavours. And the job I was doing at the time, I was getting a little bit bored, shall we say, a little bit fed up, wanted a change. We do say it's a midlife crisis. And I was sitting with a mate and we were sitting in the pub and the beer we were drinking wasn't particularly good. And I just said, I could make better beer than this. I've never made a beer in my life. And obviously, we had been drinking.
6 hours on.
And then he went, yeah, I'm sure you could. And that was the end of it. And then like a week or so later, I went, what do you think? What we were talking about? So we literally bought a crappy homebrew kit off the internet, made some syrup into alcohol and went, this is easy, isn't it? And then just sort of got a bug of homebrewing, if you like. We'd homebrew once a week, gradually increase the kit. And then we're like, we can make a little business out of this. And, and that's how Neptune was born, really. It was a home brewing journey into obviously production brewing.
I think the thing that also spurred us on, that sounds all, quite comical, but to a degree it's correct. But we also passed the beers that we brewed out to friends and some of our peers in the industry and family, and we wanted them to give feedback, and the feedback was very positive. And a couple of them said, you could do that as a business. You should open a brewery, because they're really good beers. And it was great to hear that. And that sort of spurred us on. So that small little tiny kit sort of then grew.
Yeah.
And as I say, here we are nearly 6 years later.
I was just going to say, when did Neptune then start, as in the brewery we know it today?
2015.
April 2015. And the first beers came out a month or so later.
So we've been home brewing for about 12, 18 months before that. And as I say, it was then that we thought, what, it's now or never. Craft beer was getting a lot more popular. So we thought, well, people are saying they're enjoying the beers, who are tasting it. I'm not one for sort of going, I wish we'd have done it. I'd rather say we've done it and we failed, but at least we had a go. If is one of the biggest words in the English language, isn't it, as such? And so now we just went for it, and we've not looked back since, really.
In that time, obviously the last 5 coming on 6 years now, the brewery's been growing. What sort of size have you grown to now? So you've got obviously a much bigger output now, but what sort of size are we talking about brewery
When
wise?
we started off, we were very cautious as such to start off. We started off on a 200 litre kit, basically, so a 1 barrel kit. And it was more to do with, I'm not saying we weren't sure about the beers, but we were not sure about the marketplace, if that makes sense.
Sales.
So we thought we'll start cautiously, start small. So, and it was just cask output. We did a little bit of bottling, but it was mainly cask output into obviously just the Merseyside area. Obviously, from then, the beer was going well. So people were asking for it. We had pubs asking us for it. So after maybe just short of 12 months, we were like, obviously this is going to be a bit more successful. So we went for a 6 barrel kit, so 10 hec, couple of fermenters. And then after that, I think a year later, bolted on another 2 fermenters. And then just over a year again later, we bolted on another 2. So we've now got 6 fermenters on. We've increased the mash tun size for a 10 barrel, so we can obviously get some bigger beers out as well without doing double mashes and things like that.
Everything we've done has been through organic growth. We've not pushed anything as in, let's go and be a 10 barrel or a 20 barrel. We've wanted to do everything steady.
Yeah.
That everything that we get goes back into the brewery. It's organic growth, and so it's Les now that are accountable for what comes in, what goes out, and and that's the way it's been up to now, and that's the way that it'll stay. And we're quite proud of that, really. That it's been through organic growth, not that we've just felt so let's jump in. Because we have heard of other breweries that have grown far too quick in such a short time, and they have been struggling, or they're struggling now, trying to get the sales to keep up with the beer capacity that they need to get out to pay for things. So we're very lucky in that aspect that we are where we are. We were actually going to expand beginning of this year with a couple more fermenters as well, and that was on the card, but obviously March came plus COVID, and that sort of put our plans on hold. But once things are back to normal, we will then increase capacity again.
And have you found that, do you predominantly just, or were you predominantly just serving the local area with your draft beers, and then getting a bit further afield with small pack, or did you find that your beers were going a bit further afield just in general?
Initially, it was obviously with Merseyside, sort of Wirral, Chester. And then a couple of years ago, probably maybe 2-3 years ago, we started dipping into Manchester a little bit, which obviously with the amount of breweries in Manchester is not the easiest thing to do. So then, but it's always been draft with us as such. We've been canning for 3 years, but 80-90% of the output's always been for draft. And then obviously we've picked up distributors, so we've had beer down to London, over to Newcastle, up to Scotland and stuff like that. So only more recently, with the events that are going on, the small pack sort of taken on a little bit more importance. But the draft beer that got us, that still seems to be what's getting us further afield.
When we first started brewing, it was cask. For the first 10 months, we just produced beer for cask. And then we thought, right, okay, beer's going out, let's switch this up, let's try and do some keg beer. And that sold. Predominantly, I think most people think of us about cask. But, the keg beer is certainly just as good. And as Les has just said, the cans sell. We have our 4 core. And then, as I say, we do occasional, we do new beers and things. And now, obviously, the situation, we're selling a lot more cans than what we'd previously done.
I was going to say, have the cans been well received by the public? Are people enjoying being able to get hold of your beer in small pack?
Yeah. They've proven very popular. So we've had a lot of bottle shops contact us just before COVID, as well as during, asking can they take our beer, which is great. Lots of positive feedback as well. It's great when people want your beers because there's that many breweries out there to choose from, and we're always grateful for anyone who buys our beer, and that's not just as trade, that's for customers as well, drinkers off trade, because they have a choice to buy others, and they choose our beer, and that's very humbling, to be honest, and that makes us happy.
I think with the cans, what strikes me is you've got a very distinctive brand. It matches. It's not haphazard. So you may change a bit of the colouring in the background or in the forefront as well, but it's definitely a brand. What's behind the name Neptune and everything else with it?
The previous life I had was in aquatics. So aquariums and ponds and all that malarkey, and the business was called Neptune Aquatics. So when we decided to start the brewery, and we were trying to think of names for the brewery, and we came up with all the usual ridiculousness, and the more you think about it, the worse it becomes, and you're thinking, we can't call it that. And then I said, why don't we just call it Neptune Brewery? And we were like, actually, you know what? That works.
Yeah.
So we've got that backstory now as well. So a lot of the beer names are now named after things to do with the sea or water.
Fish.
We've got some fish names in there. We've got
mythological creatures.
Yeah. So it's sort of it centres down an alley which, luckily, like the sea, is quite vast. So I don't think we're going to run out of beer names and things like that, but it's nice to have that backstory and they all tie into each other. We throw in the odd song name and stuff like that as well, which are related to the sea. This one we're drinking now is actually a song title from Dire Straits back in the 80s, showing me age again there, but there we go. Obviously, and with the branding, from day one, we were thinking, obviously, if someone sees that Trident, they'll know it's our beer. And if they've had our beer before and liked it, and they'll go, oh, I recognise that. And on a bar, it'll stand out. And we've had people who said, oh, I like the red one. I like the blue one. They don't know what the beer is, but they remember the Trident. And then they'll go, as you say, the colour will be different, but they recognise the Trident. So sometimes we just buy the beer on the branding rather than actually what the beer name and things like that is. So we've been keen to keep that sort of through everything we do. So obviously the cans, the pump clips, the logo, all the merch we do has always got that Trident on. So it's quite important, I think, for us now just to sort of keep going with that now, because people understand what it's about. When they drink a Neptune beer, they think that's a Neptune beer and know it's a Neptune beer.
They may not stand out compared to a lot of other cans out there, because there are some absolutely amazing can designs, because they're not jazzy, they're not in your face, they're not bright and not orange, and hence maybe like Beavertown, if you like, they're very prompt, you see that, but at the same time we want that slight subtleness as well. We want the Trident to stand out as well, and so you see that Trident and you go, yeah, that's Neptune, that's at the forefront of what we want, the Trident.
I think that's so important, though. I think that's the thing that's often overlooked with branding, and like you say, yes, there's a lot of great cans out there now that are covered in some amazing artwork, but sometimes the one thing that you can't find is the name of the brewery or their logo. So especially if it's a new brewery that you've not seen before,
or even the style of the beer.
Yeah, and I think you've got it bang on there in terms of that Trident of yours does very much stand out on whatever background it sits on. I mean, I remember when we were in Liverpool for Martin Stag Do, we finished off in the grapes, and they had one of your beers on. It was a 10% Imperial Stout, and I saw it on the pump clip as soon as I walked in, and I was like, I want that beer. Before I'd even read what it was and what the ABV was, I knew I wanted it because I knew it was from a local brewery, and it was delicious. delicious. It was absolutely not what I needed at the end of a 12-hour stag do, but it was absolutely delicious, and it was on cask as well, and it was perfect.
Well, I'd say obviously the Grapes is one of those pubs where Wilson, who's the manager there, the cellarman, doesn't matter what beer you give him, obviously, it doesn't matter what, any beer you give him, he'll go, I'll have it in cask. And he'll put sours on, he'll put saisons, whatever in cask, imperial stouts. You just know it's going to come out right as well. So obviously, from our point of view, it's the pinnacle of just, to be fair, Liverpool's brewing scene at the moment was the great. Well, I say it still is, but with lockdown, it's not. Every brewery has the beer in the Grapes, every brewery, and they know it's going to be right. And it's now one of those pubs you go into, and you're pretty much guaranteed to bump into a brewer as well, because they know the beer is going to be right.
Yeah. Especially for cask beer, it's foremost on cask. It does sell keg, but it is more about the cask beer with the Grapes, and Wilson is great at salesmanship as well. So
it was a cracking place to finish off, and I can't remember what other beers I had. As Steve said, it was the back end of the day, but it had a lovely feel to it as well. The pub.
I think if it was the 10% imperial, it would have been Hear the Sirens, which is the
that rings a bell.
House. Yeah. Well, I actually brewed that beer. It was a beer I brewed with Katie Mather, who's also a beer writer. She's opening up her own bar soon, Corso. And Katie came across, and her and I brewed that, and I say we called it Hear the Sirens, which was our first imperial stout, and I'm really, both of us really pleased with it.
Believe it or not, it was pushed by Clitheroe Camera. We're doing their beer festival, and they said to us, we want something that's brewed by ladies, that's not brown and not twiggy. So I think we basically nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he actually did want to call it Poke the Dinosaurs, but we were like, no.
Maybe not so subtle.
Yeah, but no, it's a lovely beer, and I'm thinking about rebrewing it next year. Might even barrel age it as well. See what happens.
Ooh.
Okay, now you're talking. Now you're very much
get
talking.
Steve and Martin paying attention. Barrel age.
Just going back to our designs and our cans, we must give a shout out to JP, who is the designer for all our cans. He just, he gives us what we ask for, basically. Yeah. He will think of ideas and he'll come up with suggestions. We say what the beer is going to be, and he will then come up with, he
does our website and everything else. So.
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Design, if you want to give him a plug.
Well, you just have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned that one-off, well, it was one-off at the time. The 10% Imperial Stout was a bit of a special that you did. In terms of the brewery's offering, you've got a core range.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
We have 4 beers, what we class as our core range. We've got Mosaic, Azili. So Mosaic's a 4.5% American Pale, which I think you guys drank on the show a couple of months ago. Azili's 4% Pale, which is probably our best-selling beer. Wooden Ship's 4.7, and again American Pale. And then we do Abyss, which is an oatmeal stout. So they're the 4 beers we try and keep in stock all of the time. Not always, achievable, but we do try and keep them in stock all the time.
And then around that, you've got rotating. Are they just other beers that you want to brew at the time, or would you class them as seasonals or specials that rotate around that?
We have some regular beers, like Amberjack is more of a regular beer now. We've also got, we did have a bit of King of the Sea, which we brewed more regular, but we put that on hold and we brought out a new one called Panama, which is a golden bitter. We've got Equinox, which is an IPA as well. So we like to rotate our occasionals in with the cores. So yeah, we've got some new beers coming out.
And new beers generally come with events. Obviously, there's been no events this year, so sometimes if you're doing a tap takeover or there's a beer festival, you go, we'll do a new beer, we'll launch at the tap takeover or at the festival. So we always like to do that, and if it's a pub or whatever, we try and get them involved. Like the Azili, which is our core beer now, was originally brewed with the Crown and Kettle in Manchester. It was for
Mickey
Beardless Beer Week.
Yeah.
So again, it's an annual thing the Crown and Kettle do. She gave us the brief of a nice, low ABV pale ale, and literally we can't keep up with it now. People get a cob on in the tap room if we haven't got it on. So
it was actually chosen as one of the beers for Cask Ale Week. They were doing beers for the length of the week that it was on, and Azili was chosen a Cask Beer Day as well, which was great. So it is a lovely pale. It's a citrus pale.
When you talk about your beers, you obviously reference cask beer a lot, and certainly every one of your beers that I've tried in small packing cans, every time I've drunk one, I'm like, that's really delicious.
Yeah.
But I bet that's amazing on cask.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is as well, with all our beers is naturally conditioned, so even the cans are can conditioned. So I think it does hark back to probably being heritage of cask beer. Even sort of the IPAs we do, you can still see them being on cask. So the carbonation is always quite light with them. We don't overcarb anything, so we like to think it's sympathetic, shall we say, to the style, but it'll work in a can, it'll work in a keg, it'll work in cask. Because when we do brew, we generally split the batch into whether it be cask keg, can, or whatever it may be. So there's the same beer. We don't treat it any differently. It just goes into each package as we see fit at the time.
And we have pubs and bars that don't actually do keg beer. They're just cask only. So no matter what the beer is, even when I brewed Nightingale, which was the beer for International Women's Day, that went into cask as well because those pubs asked for it. We've done a Kolsch, we put that into the cask because they've said, what are you brewing? We've said, and we go, right, okay, you can have it. And
even the lager we do, we put some of that into cask.
Yeah, and it went very well actually.
Now I just want to be at a pub drinking cask lager and cask Kolsch.
Yeah.
Well, going back to what you said, Steve, about it being very drinkable, that's what we want our beers to be. That's what we are known for. We want to be known for is, as I say, beer, that's beer.
Yeah.
And that's drinkable, that you will have 1 pint, irrespective of what method it's dispensed, and you'll go, do you know what, I enjoyed that, I'm going to have another. And, that's what we're about as well. We're not into doing the, big pastry stouts all the time, juicy, bombs and all that sort of stuff. We do change things up and we do different styles of beer. Other people do that, and that's fine. Let them get on. That's what they want to do. But this is what we want to do, and we're more than happy. I know, and I will say that some people probably think that our beer is boring. Well, that's fine. That's up to them, because it's not singing juice all the time and fruit. But, you can go in, as I say, and you can drink it more than once. And the majority of people you want drinking a beer aren't necessarily, if you use the words beer nerds, crafty people. It's your general folk Joe Bloggs who comes out of work and wants a couple of pints at 6 o'clock. Yeah, and that's what we do. There's enough breweries that do other stuff, so there's room for all.
I think the industry as a whole suffers from the what's next sort of mentality, and we have pubs and they go, I think every brewery again can say the same thing. They go, we'll sell a cask of Mosaic. How did it go? Oh, it was brilliant. Do you want another one? No, what else have you got? And I think that is to some degree,
it's fueling,
it's an issue with the industry, because you've got to keep when pubs start doing it, that's the worst thing. The individuals will go, oh, what's next? But when the pubs do it, that's a bit more of an issue, I think, because you've then got to think, I've got to do another new beer next week. I've got to do another new beer next week. I've got to satisfy this demand. And to some degree, you're not going to do an output of a new beer every week. Make it radically different from the one you did the week before. And then sometimes as well, the quality won't be there because you've not sort of had the time to consider this beer. Whereas, I mean, like Single-Handed Sail we're drinking now, I think it was a month in my head before it actually went into production. So I didn't have to think, oh God, I've got to produce this next week. It was like, you know what, I'm going to go, right, what hop will work with what? And, you know, you don't get that with the what's next sort of culture, I think.
Having said that, you know, there are breweries that brew a lot of new beers on a regular basis, whether it be weekly or monthly, and it works for them, and that's fine. But as I say, it's just not what we stand by what we want. You know, bloody hell, one of the beers we're going to have in a minute is our first double dry hopped IPA. So, you know, double dry hop, people are probably brewing that about a year ago.
Just as well.
I think it's a good point though. I mean, I remember talking to Sam Brooks down here in London, and they said getting on a bar wasn't always the hardest bit. It was staying.
Yeah.
Because of that, started that culture about what's the next beer and stuff. For me, and Steve probably agrees as well, we like it when a brewery has a core range. We like it when a brewery nails a core range, more importantly.
Yeah.
And also does it well, nails it, does it well, puts it out there. And, you know, there are some pubs that I love going to because I know that they're going to have a particular beer on from a particular brewery that I've had before that I've really enjoyed. I don't always want, don't get me wrong, if there's enough taps, I don't mind a new one being on. But one of the best things about going to maybe your favourite kind of venue is that, they had this last time, I hope they've got it on again.
Yeah. I think the what's next thing works better with cans, for sure. Because, you know, when you're drinking at home, it's a different culture. So you might be drinking at home to try something different. Whereas, when you go to the pub, you go to your local, you meet your same friends, and you'll see the beer that you like and go, great, I'll have that. And, you know, to some degree, if you're around with a group of friends and you go, what do you want? You go, I'll have the same again. It's easy when you're in company. I think when you say, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, you know, the what's next thing that, you know, it does.
It's exciting.
It does fuel the industry at the same time, because obviously there's a lot of creativity and you know, sort of people pushing boundaries, and, you know, let's face it, a lot of them do it really, really well. And, you know, I will see something and go, oh God, I've not had that before, I'll have a go at that. But at the same time, it's nice to just go, oh, old favourites. Like if you're in the lakes, you want a Lakeland Pale Ale, you don't want to be going, oh, look, there's a sour on. I'm sat by the fire drinking this sour. So it's sort of, again, it's the venue you're in.
That's silly too. Some people may like to
Well,
sit by the fire and drink sours.
I don't.
You do. You don't like sours.
I don't like sour anyway. So
Steve, a soulmate for you.
Excellent, yeah. I found another one that doesn't like sours. It's brilliant. I think some of this though also comes down to you folks clearly know your market. You clearly know what your drinkers want to drink, and you clearly know what the venues that you sell to want to sell their drinkers as well. That speaks volumes, and obviously that must be, again, where you've come from a background of living in the community and then understanding what that community likes in terms of its drinks, that's allowed you to tailor your approach to what you're producing for them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah,
because they're beers that you'd want to drink if you went into a pub.
Yeah. I say we don't always brew exactly what we always want to drink ourselves, because we're not catering as such for us. We're catering for, you know, our customers and the pub. At the end of the day, we know whether that beer has done well by if we get another reorder. of that beer. It may not be the following week, but it may be a couple of weeks later, and they say, yeah, I'll have 2 casks of that, and so we know that that it's gone well. But everybody has a different palate, isn't it? Yeah. And what one person likes, another person dislikes. So, yeah.
It has been great to see that you've been able to transition to the small pack and to still get your product out there, because as we've mentioned a few times, it's been a difficult year so far, and obviously as a brewery operating during this time must have been, I don't think tough even begins to describe how it must have been for you folks.
When COVID hit, I say it's more poignant in my mind. The 20th of March was the day that my dad passed away suddenly. And that was the day that Boris Johnson got on the telly and said, right, we suggest no one goes into a pub because we're closing them all and everything. So it was like a double whammy, if you like, emotional upset, and then dealing obviously with, oh shit, what are we going to do financially? So that was a massive worry as well. But then the two of us sat down and thought, right, okay, what are we going to do about this? And it gave us breathing time, didn't it?
Yeah.
To think how we were going to operate within the boundaries that were put to us, that, getting beer out to people one way or the other.
The first few weeks, we literally didn't do anything. We didn't know what was going to happen, whether it was just going to be short term, whether it was going to be, as it turns out, sort of 8-9 months now. We took the time to just do some stuff in the brewery, change the tap room around, built a new bar in the tap room. And so it gave us a little bit of time to do that. And then it was like, okay, we've actually got to sort of start taking some money again now. Luckily for us, the tap room, they had an off license. So although a lot of breweries had to go through the rigmarole of, getting an off license, going through the council, and a lot of them had a lot of trouble doing it. We were lucky enough to be able to still sell beer. So we basically adapted as we saw fit. So beer into milk cartons out the door, on a Friday and a Saturday initially. Soul destroying putting your beer into a milk carton, but, needs must. And then obviously cans as well. We sort of, we started again up in the production of cans. So, instead of doing sort of 1,000 cans a batch, we were doing sort of 3,000 cans a batch and stuff like that, because there was no draft. And then the
mini cask,
the advent of the mini cask, which became vogue for the summer. So we've just, I think us as well as everybody else, has just adapted the best we can. Yeah. And we were in the fortunate position, as I say, we didn't have to alter any of our licensing. We could just, go straight in and do it.
Yeah.
So
we were doing deliveries as well. It wasn't just people. Initially, it was deliveries out instead of people come into the tap room for takeout. We were doing deliveries to people, because by it was like sort of April, May, and a lot of people were still either shielding or worried about how it was going. And it was only when it sort of eased a bit and they said you can actually start doing takeout if you've got a tap room, like obviously bottle shops could do that. Then we opened the tap room and it proved wonderfully successful, I'm glad to say, and it still does. We still do that.
Yeah.
And you've still been able to do that because obviously you've been in much stricter restrictions in Merseyside. You've still been able to offer those takeouts through the tap room during that time.
Tier 3 we were put in, and then there was the big hoo-ha originally, wasn't there, where you couldn't sell any alcohol, and then there was a massive push by many breweries, Seba as well, camera saying, this is just bloody ridiculous. How are you expecting breweries to survive? And then thankfully some common bloody sense, came into the picture and we could do takeout. So that's what we did. As I say, we set up the tap room where people could literally just step in the front door, and that was as far as they get. Les and I were wearing masks anyway, even before it became compulsory, because it's important of our health and safety, because if anything happens to us, because we're the main people in the brewery, then it's shut down for the brewery. hand gel on the door, so even contactless. So everything like that was put in place even before Johnson decided that's what must happen. And we had people, come in, and they were lining up and collecting, takeout cans and the casks.
And has it been nice to be able to still see all those punters turn up to buy the takeout beers, to buy the cans? But it must give you a bit of a glow that people are still willing to go out of their way to support you.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. People initially throughout the summer, when it was quite busy at times, even though it was great, it was literally like, "Hi, how are you? Everything okay? Thanks very much." But even then, it was just nice to see another face and have a conversation. When the pubs did reopen, we did open the tap room, I think, for about 4 weeks, but just on a Saturday, with obviously the social distance and things in place with the table service. And that felt okay. It was nice. We'd actually had longer conversations with people. But yeah, we're very grateful for. We have a sort of a core range of let's say core range. That sounds like
a core range of punters.
we have a good group of people, a community of people who come pretty much every week and support us. Yeah, we're eternally grateful for that, because they'll come in every week and go, "Yeah, well, I'll have 2 pints of that, and give me 6 cans." And it's like really good, and it has. But actually just making sure, and we've actually got to learn a lot of people's names now. Whereas when you just serve over the bar, you're like, "Oh yeah, you okay, pints," and that's it. Whereas now we're having conversations with them, even if it's only for 2 minutes. But they'll go, or they'll ring up and go, "Hi, it's Brian. I'm coming down for, can you put it aside for me?" So we've actually got to know a lot more people's names, which is nice as well.
We've had a lot of new people as well, which has been fantastic, by word of mouth or from social media. People that didn't know that the tap room was there. Say, when we started the brewery, we didn't want anyone to know where we were, because we were that busy brewing and sending beer out that we couldn't have people just turning up and wanting beer. It was only when the tap room opened, May 2019, we started shouting about it more.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that people won't keep enjoying your beer, because as I think we've said a number of times already, your beers are really delicious. They're really tasty, to the point where mine's finished. The single-handed sailor went quicker than anticipated. I think just really, really drinkable. Just you could sit and just drink that all afternoon, and at the ABV, that's going to help you to have quite a nice session on that. And any final thoughts on the single-handed sailor, mate?
Mine only lasted because I forced myself to make it last. That was a 5-minute drink, that one, almost. You're right. A beer garden, a barbecue, that sort of lighter weather. Yeah, it's definitely pintable. Pints are achievable, as was quoted on our show a few show episodes ago.
Well, we're going to take a step up now to something that's got a slightly higher ABV. Again, I'm not going to even begin to start describing what we're pouring here. I'm going to leave that to our guests to tell us what we're enjoying for beer number 2.
Okay, this one's a brand new beer, which we've never done before. Also a style that we've never done before. I believe these cool kids call it a double dry hopped IPA. So, we're sort of, we're on the curve of fashion with this one as far as Neptune goes. I think the next one we're going to do is one of these, what's it called, a brute IPA. I think that's next on the line for us. I think that's what the kids are drinking nowadays. But anyway, in all seriousness, this is the first double dry hopped IPA we've done. So, Pale Blue Oceans at 6.5%. Brewed with Citra and Mosaic hops. Mosaic's probably my favourite hop to use, and I think it blends really well with Citra. So obviously you're getting all the sort of citrusy, grapefruity notes from the Citra, and mixed with the Mosaic. Sort of the Mosaic lifts it up with the sort of a bit more soft, fruity, blueberry, flavours and aromas, and then obviously, the combination of which gives you, I think, a really sort of flavour sour aromatic beer. with quite a sticky sort of resinous finish, with a touch of pine on the end there as well.
I'm salivating here. I can't wait anymore. I need to dive into this.
Yeah,
Cheers.
I'm going in. Cheers.
Cheers.
You two just talked amongst yourselves. So I'm going to just carry on drinking.
Yeah, I'm out as well. I've got nothing else to say. That is proper tasty.
It's properly dangerous at 6.5% as well.
Yeah, that is ticking a lot of boxes for me. As you say, Les, it's got all of those kind of big citrusy flavours that you're looking for, but they're so well rounded. They're so balanced out. That they come across as just being really smooth. They're really there, and then you do get just that little bit of resiny stickiness towards the end, and then it delivers this beautifully soft but dangerously deceptive bitter finish to it that literally does that thing where it just pulls you back in for another gulp because you want to try it again.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm really pleased with the way it's come out. This is one of those beers. As I say, normally we don't can any of the first ones because we generally put it out into draft. We'll go out, we'll drink it in the tap room and go, right, is that good? Is it nice? Is it whatever else? Can we tweak it? This one's the equivalent of what we used to call a straight to DVD when the film was bad. It could have been straight to DVD because it's straight to can without us sort of tweaking it as we think necessary. But, you know, it's turned out really well. So the majority of this went into cans. We've done a couple of kegs of it just for sort of the tap room and stuff like that. But it all went into can. And, yeah, it's worked out really nicely.
I don't think there's any tweaking necessary.
No.
Martin, what are you thinking on this one?
I wouldn't tweak it. I mean, me and Steve had privately wondered if Mosaic and or Citra were favourite hops, given the prevalence of Mosaic in a number of the beers.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, they are two of my favourite hops anyway. So the more you described it, the more I did want to dive in. Wasn't disappointed, as Steve has summed it all up. But 6.5% versus the other one of 4.2, I could seriously do myself a lot of damage because I would get stuck into that 6.5, and I don't know if I'd come off it.
It's danger juice, isn't it? It really is. It's not drinking the ABV at all. It's just so soft and easy to drink.
I think that's good in some respect. That it has a 6.5. It is easy drinking. You're not feeling that alcohol burn or anything like that. It's very well balanced. But at the same time, there's that, oh crap, I've drank too much and it's too late.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Crack on, Steve, because this beer ain't lasting.
I was just about to say we're in danger territory here immediately this before we even get to the news. So we better crack on and get through this week's news. So first up is obviously the announcement today, on the day of recording, as to what happens when we come out of this current lockdown period that we're in. And obviously certain restrictions are ending, others are being lifted, others are being tweaked, but all of that seems to come at a massive cost to hospitality and in particular pubs, because it would appear that as we come out of this, if any region that's not in tier 1 and isn't a pub that essentially serves food, pubs aren't going to be able to open, from what I understand.
Hospitality is bloody well and truly being thrown under the bus, and it just makes me furious, to be honest, Steve, just bloody thinking about it. That, there's a hell of a lot of people who've poured thousands of pounds into their pubs and bars to be able to support getting staff in. And they've done it so well. We've travelled around many, when we could, of the Merseyside pubs to support them as punters as well, and see how well that they've put in the restrictions. And they were just brilliant, doing everything that they should have done. And then to get told, well, actually, no, you're not good enough. You're going to have to shut. And, just the places that can sell, food as well as alcohol can open up. And that includes us, the tap room. We don't do, food as such. We do snacks, but it's not substantial meal, and it's just appalling, absolutely appalling. There's no support for us at all. You know, what's the bloody difference? You know, just because you eat a substantial means that me and COVID holds off and goes, oh, hang on, boys, you know, they're having a meal, let's wait until they're finished and then we'll come back. It's just, oh.
I absolutely get what you're saying there, Julian. I 100% agree with it. I don't understand the rationale behind some of the decisions that have been made here. But there was one tweet that I saw earlier today. It did actually make me think about in particular the substantial meal restriction. Is that there kind of almost to stop pub crawls and to stop people from visiting lots of different pubs in one evening? Because you're unlikely to go to a pub and have a substantial meal and then move on to another pub and have another substantial meal and then move on and on and on. So is that their reasoning behind it? Or is it that they've just got their heads so far buried in the sand that, and they're not taking notice of any of the data or any of the scientific research that sits behind it? I don't understand where their thinking's at with this, and I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Martin holding his face, and I think I'm about to unleash a beast here.
I don't know about heads in the sand, mate, but heads up their arse. I saw that tweet as well, and I think it had a point, but there is a very large section of the population who don't do pub crawls, who live in places which maybe only have one pub. So, and that pub may not necessarily be a food-led pub, especially a lot of these community-bought and community-owned pubs. I think a large part of it is just down to the fact that the people in government probably don't really know what a wet-led pub is. A lot of the time. They don't know the significance of it. They don't know how people operate in it. A lot of the options of doing crawls or going between in between venues has sort of been nullified a lot of the time anyway.
Yeah.
And there's enough people who have been taking the piss during this second lot of restrictions anyway. And you're quite right, Julie. Hospitality has been by far and away the biggest thrown under the bus industry.
Yeah,
you know, closely followed by the industry. Steve works in leisure, and going back to what you said, that the data really hasn't supported any of those decisions. You know, if you were going to go on data, you'd be shutting down schools, universities and supermarkets. If it was data-led. And just for clarity, I'm not advocating any of that, but that's what you would do if you were truly following the data.
I mean, the thing with the supermarket, you don't have to track and trace in the supermarket.
It's bonkers.
I can't understand that. Yeah, I literally cannot understand that.
I can spend longer in a supermarket sometimes than I do when I go for a pint.
Yeah, every pub or restaurant you go into, before you even cross the threshold, there's a thing to scan, and there's a thing to do your hands.
Yeah, and you've probably and you've booked as well, probably.
Yeah, and then they tell you where to sit, and you can't move unless you want to wee, and that's it. Whereas a supermarket, you can just roam around willy-nilly,
touching everything,
picking stuff up, putting it back down, and I don't want that one anymore, and you put it back, but no one even knows you've been there.
I haven't quite fully digested all of the restrictions, and I'm not sure they're all completely clear to everyone. But I guess you guys know in Merseyside, you won't be entering the lowest.
No, absolutely
tier.
No.
So
absolutely.
I can foresee us being in the one we were in beforehand, which is the substantial meal. I think that's the best we can hope for.
And we're not actually going to find out until Thursday this week. So that, in effect, as a business, is only going to give you a week's notice in terms of setting yourself up again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're a pub who has cask beer, then you've got to order that beer, you've got to let it settle. You know, any good cellar person will do that. And, you know, it takes over a week by the time you've ordered it, it's been delivered. You know, they haven't got a bloody clue.
And it's just even the same with the restaurant. The restaurant's still going to then order all of the raw ingredients and do everything else. And it is. I don't think whoever it is that decided hospitality was the devil has, you know, obviously never sort of been behind the scenes in the business. It's
So we talk about hospitality, and I say this a lot as well. We both do on social media. Hospitality is our bread and butter, the pubs, the bars, the bottle shops, but it's not just them, it's the people who also supply the supply chain as well. It's the breweries as well, who the likes of us that, it's causing issues for. It's people who supply, simple things like maybe the hand wipes for the toilets. It's the people who clean the pubs, the domestics and things like that. There's the whole kit and caboodle of everything that goes with hospitality, that when they're putting the clamp down, that affects so many more people.
I think I saw a tweet today. Said it does affect about 1 million people in this country. And that's quite a large number who are basically going from day to day, wondering whether they're going to be able to go to work the next day.
Yeah, and it's not the most highest paid industry in the best of times. So to then be told you're getting, I think someone also mentioned that, especially for waiting staff, that their take-home money includes tips. Yeah. Your furlough schemes and such like don't cover that. It covers your basic salary.
Yeah. And all of this obviously comes at a time when the industry in itself is struggling anyway, which has been highlighted recently on what I personally think is one of the best BBC TV series that they've ever put out, which is the Saving Britain's Pub series with Tom Kerridge that has been airing recently. I know as at point of recording, we're only 2 episodes into that, but what it's doing is it's really highlighting the plight of some pubs and bars and the restrictions that they struggle to operate under when they're in the tide system. But there's some absolute heartbreaking television in there coming, because I think as we left it on at the end of episode 2, particularly the pub in that pub in that small village in Cornwall that were planning their grand reopening on the night of lockdown starting. I just think there's some real tough scenes coming in that program. I'm sure we've all got our views on what we've been seeing. Julie, Les, I take it you've been keeping up to date with
Yeah, we've been watching each episode as it's been airing, and it's great, as you say, that Tom Kerridge, he's got a couple of pubs himself on the Tide, he said so, but he's obviously doing all right with Green King, who he's with. But there's some that certainly aren't doing as well under those pub codes. There's some disgusting behaviour that's going on, and treatment by pub codes that at least it's putting a spotlight. But it's also interesting, I find, that how people are managing their pubs as well. The lady who's got the pub in London, which I can't remember, and the guys that come to play the
Nunhead.
The one in Nunhead.
Things. Yeah. And I was just flabbergasted, and that doesn't happen often, that there was no beer on the bar. Yeah. There was no hand pumps. There was no taps or anything. And I was like, how do people know what they can drink? How do you know what you're serving? People, if they look through the window, go, what's on? Do you know what I mean? And I was truly sort of speechless that a pub could be run like that for years without, and lovely for her that she thinks about the people who played the dominoes, but they were 1 or 2 pints for about 4 hours. That can't pay your bills.
I got the feeling that some of those dominoes players were simply taking the piss.
Absolutely.
The fella that ordered I have my pint of beer and then I drink water all night. So you're in this place, like you say, probably for 4 or 5 hours, and you've spent probably £4.
Yeah,
you're taking the piss, mate. Out
no support for her at all. Yeah. She's allowing you to come in and to play dominoes with your friends, but you're not supporting her in any other way. Oh my! I was just, my eyes were popping out my head. Never mind what I was saying.
Yeah, it's been a real eye opener.
It has been an eye opener. I mean, I have to admit, when I was first watching that bit, I hadn't quite clocked what I was looking at was wrong, And then when Tom said beer taps, I thought, yeah, there is no taps. I can't actually see any beer when I come into the pub.
It was all in the other room, wasn't it? They had another bar in the other room with like, I think Guinness and stuff.
Yeah, but that's the one they didn't really use much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
The one thing I found a little bit disappointing with that was when she did put taps in, that they made a big point about it being from a craft brewery, and yet this brewery was in West Sussex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hang on a minute, where you're based, you've got maybe 3 or 4 amazing breweries on your doorstep. Yeah. Why haven't you gone to any of them?
I think the tearjerker is still to come.
Oh, absolutely. But this week's one.
The couple who run the pub, which is the live music venue, and the couple who've been doing all that work in the pub to open up, so you can see that wonderful view out the back. That was quite tough watching that bit, I have to admit, because we're watching it knowing exactly what's coming.
Yeah.
And what happens next.
Oh yeah, you saw the seat.
The end's been spoiled, hasn't it? To some degree, you know, it's not like a surprise. You know, it's going to be.
But I think it's been done very sympathetically by Tom, because I wasn't sure how we would go, given his background with food and stuff. Yeah. It doesn't feel like he had any agenda with the food side of things at all.
Yeah. No. The one thing I would have liked though is for him to grill the guy who we met, and he was talking about. It was from the pub. Was it Punch?
Yeah.
I would have liked to have him grilled a little bit more.
I think you need panorama for that, Julie. I'm not sure that's going to be Tom's bag.
I think a lot of people said that though. I certainly saw a lot of commentary straight after that second episode, and on Twitter the next day, of people saying he went a bit easy on him. But you kind of look at that interview and you think that they've obviously cut out just the best bits of that interview, and I would like to see the whole interview, and to see whether he does get into it.
I would argue. Sorry, I was just going to say. I think that he got what he needed from the interview.
Yeah.
Which was the buy-in for the pub he was talking. It's a bit like other consumer programs when, someone's been trying for a year to get hold of the customer services person to get something sorted. BBC Watchdog phone up, and suddenly there's a bit of progress taking place.
But it shouldn't be like that show, should it?
No.
That's what I was going to say. If it wasn't on the TV, would Punch be going to that place? Because you saw at the end, they're going, oh yeah, we can put this carpet here, we can do this. Would they have done that without it being on the telly?
No,
absolutely not. Yeah,
no, they were on the TV. Tom already had a relationship with the guy, one of the top guys, and it gives them a little bit. Let's face it, especially a company like Punch.
Well, makes them look good, doesn't it?
Yeah. But the one good thing it has highlighted is the beer type, which a lot of people, when they buy a pint, they don't understand. They just get a pint. It may make people think, is this pub making any money? We've got the Roscoe Head in Liverpool. Carol's just finally, after many years of battle, actually managed to buy the freehold of a pub, and she can now buy beer off who she likes when she likes, and hopefully she'll start making some decent money. Yeah. Which is what a lot of pub tied pubs don't do. Them 2 people in Gloucester, and did they say 75 quid a week each?
Mm.
Yeah, it's nothing.
No, and the working, let's face it, we know people in pubs work, 12, 14-hour days most of the time. So,
well, your pub becomes your life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes your social life, your work life, your rest life, whatever it might be. I like I said, what I've enjoyed about it, and I think this is where probably general public, people who are maybe less invested in pub scenes, is the personal stories behind it. The fact that, like you say, they've sat there and said, well, we pay ourselves £75 a week. That in itself will get people's attention, hopefully. I'm looking forward to seeing episodes 3 and 4, but with just that slight bit of trepidation as well.
Yeah, I agree. And like I say, it's great viewing, and it's emotional stuff at times. And as you say, it's on every Thursday evening, 8:00 BBC 2, or probably also available on iPlayer as well, if you do want to check that out. Now, just to finish off this week's news on a slightly lighter note, just want to wish the Hop Hideout in Sheffield a very happy 7th birthday. Jules was a guest on the show back in the summer, and it's great to see that I think they've just finished doing a weekend of celebrations, which I think, Julie, you guys were involved in, weren't you?
We were, yeah. Jules is lovely. She's done some amazing stuff with Hop Hideout, and she works so many, God knows how many hours as well. So yeah, it was fantastic to see. She did a number of different events over the weekend, and the one that Les was in, what you watched, it was the St. Mars, wasn't it?
They did a brewery tour with St. Mars of the Desert, which was
it was really interesting.
It was really interesting to see how they're going along, and then there was a bit of a Q&A session at the end of that with Dan and Martha.
And then we were both involved in the Pete Brown's got a new book coming out with regards to marketing and labels and designs and things. And we're very grateful Pete's put some stuff in about our labels as well. So one of our beers, which Abyss, funny enough, the oatmeal stout, was in the cans as well. So there was a little bit of a 5-minute chat about our labels, and as we said earlier on, about why do we have the type of labels we do, and so on. So, but no, it was great. It was really good. Sessions, as I say, was made up for Jules 7 years.
I've accidentally finished my double dry hop IPA. Martin, thoughts on this?
Way too easy a drink at 6.5%. I think what you've brought out of both those hops and the balance between them is fantastic. I think Steve was very accurate earlier when he said it's that sort of end to the beer which just makes you want to go back in again. And that's what it's done every time. As soon as you finish it, and it's got quite a long-lasting finish, but it's that long-lasting finish that you feel, I need to put some more on it. I need to have some more. And I would argue that can probably was devoured a bit quicker than the first one as well.
Very much so. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed drinking that. Normally, I tend to veer away from anything that has the letters DDH on it, because I've got to a point where I've started to associate that with New England styles and sticky sweet and cloying, and that was none of that. It was fresh. It was citrusy. It was full of these lovely sticky resinous notes, and it just finished so beautifully. That's just an incredible beer. That's really, really good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for sending that down to let us try it. Moving on to our third beer of this evening, maybe a little bit earlier than we expected. The second beer went down far too easy. Les, tell us what we're drinking this time.
Okay, this time you've got Abyss, which is one of our core beers. It's a oatmeal stout. What we'd class probably as a traditional beer, traditional stout. There's nothing in it. There's no adjuncts, there's no lactose, there's no, cacao or anything like that. So it's a beer we've done pretty much from year one. It did start off as a home brew before we started. So this is one that made its way into production and has stood the test of time. It's actually won a couple of Camera Beer at the Festival Awards. Yeah, it's just a really nice stout. It's got the smooth mouthfeel you'd expect from an oatmeal stout. It's actually triple oated, which is something that we should put on the tin really. So there's 3 types of oats in there. We've got malted oats, we've got flaked oats, and we've got golden naked oats. So triple oated oatmeal stout.
Get us 3 oats.
Hey, that's a new style.
You've just invented something right there, haven't you?
Triple oated oatmeal stout.
Let's dive into this. Cheers.
Okay, disclaimer from me. After the last time we had the beers on the show, I did order some Abyss anyway. So, Steve, this is your first time?
Yeah, that's delicious. It's creamy, smooth. You do get just a subtle roastedness at the beginning, which builds as you go through it. It finishes quite soft. There's not a huge roasted bitter finish on it, but there's enough I'd say of the kind of dark chocolate characteristics knocking around in the background, just to really tickle the tongue there. It's absolutely delicious.
There's a little bit of dryness, isn't there?
Yeah, and again for 5%, it's one that you could actually do a few of these quite easily. It's a really, really, really good stout. It's exactly what I love from a stout as well. It's got none of those adjuncts in it that are sometimes completely unnecessary for well, apart from all of the oats that you've put into it. But it's just a straight up good old fashioned traditional stout, because that has got a mouthfeel of a beer that's maybe 8, 9, 10%, but it isn't. It's a 5% oatmeal stout.
Yes, again, we sent some over to a brewer friend of ours, and he actually messaged me. He said, "This does have the body of an imperial stout." I was like, okay, thanks for that. It was like a nice compliment, he paid me.
I'm sure that.
But obviously, it tasted heavier than it actually was.
Yeah, I'm sure it was meant as a compliment, because Steve's right. It has got that body to it, which you don't always get with a 5%. And I don't mind the odd pastry stout here and there. I think lactose gets overused. But to get I'd like to say straight up, but you've obviously described the amount of different types of oats you put in there. But for me, this is the kind of stout that I want to have. It's also the kind of stout I'd return to. Whereas rarely do I return to a pastry type stout. I might have it the once.
Yeah.
Maybe I might really like it. But chances are I'm not going to have a second one.
Yeah. A bit is brilliant on cask. It is absolutely superb. This is one of my favourite beers that we brew, because it is got such lovely flavour. The aroma is great as well, so easy drinking, as I say. And on cask, pouring, it's seen to settle. That nice sort of creamy coffee. Sorry.
We're back in the pub again.
Yes. This is a on cask. This is an afternoon lost, sat in the corner of a pub or your tap room, 5 or 6 pints deep of this without even thinking about it. This must be absolutely wonderful on cask.
Yeah. It is. And I think it's the one beer that we've done, I think, which has stood the test of time, if you like, when we start. Because obviously when you start, you sort of experiment with different beers and styles and whatever else. But this is the one that's seen basically us through every year since we started as well. As I say, it started off as a home brew and has managed to survive till now. And I can't see us not brewing a bit.
So, quick question. Your tap room has, because a lot of tap rooms tend to avoid, a lot of them don't always have cask.
Yeah.
But presumably you do have all your beers on the cask available.
No, we have two cask and we have 6 on keg. We only open Friday night and Saturday, so we wouldn't have. If we were open longer, we'd have more cask. But we have the 2 on, and that just sees us through those 2 days.
You know what, mate? We better crack on with the rest of the show, otherwise this beer's going the way of the other 2. So let's get into this week's questions.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
First up in the poll that we're not going to feature this week was the what some people called the most devilish question that we've ever asked. And this was courtesy of Pete McCary, who simply asked the question, if you could only have one forevermore, would it be beer or cheese? Now, we had 630 people vote on that. 82% of people went for beer and 18% of people went for cheese. There were some quite good justifications in there. I think I probably would be on the same wavelength as most people that voted there, and I would be definitely a beer person rather than cheese.
Yeah, I feel like I can, as much as I've missed cheese, I can replace cheese. I'm not sure I can replace beer.
Yeah, exactly. But let's move on to this week's main poll, which is, are you more likely to buy beer from independent producers than you were before lockdowns? This was from a suggestion by Martin at Martinteresting, who put this one forward, and we had 612 votes on this poll. 76.8% of people said yes, 23.2% of people said no. Martin himself replied, yes, lockdown has shown more than ever that supporting the brands you care about is vital for their survival. Whilst before I would aim to buy independent, but be of the opinion that good beer is good beer regardless, now I'm keen to buy independent more than ever. It's followed up by Simon Walton at Mazzy Mixer. It's made me more likely to buy any products from independent producers and retails. Too easy to be lazy and to default to supermarkets and Amazon, but there is a real joy from buying from people who are passionate about what they do and who will share that passion with you.
From Matt Chinnery at Half Pint Gent. I think this year's made me want to think more about where my penny goes, more so in beer too. I want my contribution to go somewhere I really want to survive, and that has treated staff well over the past months. And then we had from Sarah Pantry at NGLUK. Lockdowns have seen more producers having to prioritise small pack and move beyond their old regional local sales strategy, opening up easy availability to a wider market and letting me get beer from producers I couldn't before. And we had a similar comment from James at Gammon Baron as well.
From Bamba Boozler at Gregor_J_. I never buy macro because I can get better beer from craft producers, and I used to buy the odd beer from supermarkets. However, Domo and Mozza have put me right off with their nonsense. Plus, doing all that at a time when indies need us is most deplorable. And then from Ryan at Ryan Likes Dippers, trying to because no one in Tesco ever says to me, Ryan, how are you doing? Good to see you again.
From Graham Hughes at Graham H13522058. No idea why that's his Twitter handle. I preferred independent producers before lockdown. After lockdown, I will hopefully get back to the pub where the beer selection is more limited. And we had similar from Sean O'Reilly at Uncrulia. And finally, Cap and Collar at Cap and Collar. Being a neighbourhood bar that set up an online retail site prior to the first lockdown, I don't think supermarkets are our main competition. I think it's the actually breweries themselves.
We'll come to that one in a minute. We'll ask Julie and Les their thoughts on that particular point that was made there. I'm going to start here with our views on this one. You have bought a lot of beer in the last 9 months, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say prolific there for a minute.
Well, it is prolific, bordering on worrying, the amount of beer that you've bought.
Well, yeah, you know, both me and Michelle are beer lovers, and a lot of those beers do get shared as well. So we do get through a few if we're sharing them. But if I think to my actual spend and the amount of beer I'm having, I'm probably having much the same as I was before. It's just that my spend was in the City of London, probably one of the most expensive places in the UK to spend your beer pound. But there's been some real good quality out there these days. I've discovered a couple of local bottle shops who are so good on their online delivery and online servicing. I think the platforms that breweries and online retailers have been using has definitely stepped up as well. Especially the mobile versions, the ones you can use straight from your phone, definitely improved. But the beers have been cracking. So the beers we're having tonight from Neptune, the beers we've had in the past from, say, people like Cheshire Brewhouse and Brew York. So there's been some real quality coming out in small pack from independent brewers. Now, they're not local to me, but it seems that it's been easier to get hold of these beers now. And it gives me a sense of, okay, I can't travel, but the beer can travel to me from places that I would love to go to and places that I have been to before and will revisit again. But I have found myself doing sort of comfort drinking. And by that, I don't mean just drinking lots of beer. A bit like big box sets. I've found myself watching stuff which just make me feel good, make me feel comfortable. It's not all about what's the next big thing I need to watch on Netflix, what's the next beer I need to order. I'll quite happily order the same beer again. You know, case in point, when I ordered the beers from Neptune previously, or when I went back to Brew York and reordered the Big Eagle. Sometimes I just want the ones I love. If I'm going to spend money, I want it to be spent well.
Much like yourself, I've tried my best to support independent in the last 9 months or so. It's been probably slightly different for me in terms of, obviously I've been on furlough probably for 8 of those 9 months. I got to go back to work for a few weeks, and then I was furloughed again. So I've had to watch my spending a little bit more. But wherever possible, I've been able to support a small number of breweries. I've tried my hardest in those few weeks that pubs were allowed to be open to get to the Vic as much as I could and to support them and to spend money in there and also to support the local bottle shop in Colchester, Two Brews as well with my custom, plus doing sort of online orders as well, continuing to order from Sean at Beer Central. So for me it's a case of making sure I'm supporting as and when I can, rather than as and when I want to, because if it was as and when I wanted to, I'd be living in a tent in a field now. I don't think I'd have bricks and mortar supporting me. I really don't. I'm interested to talk to Les and Julie about this one in terms of, I guess, folks, when you're not drinking your own brewery's beer, that you do drink other beers as well, and I guess that you would very much be supporting other local breweries, local bottle shops, local independents, that sort of thing.
Good grief, no, why would we want to do that? We love our beer.
Well, give somebody else your hard-earned profit.
Yeah, we do, absolutely. We love to support our local economy as well as further out. So in lockdown, we've been buying other brewery beers. We've been going into
Place to orders today.
Yes, we did. We've not had any by Utopian, so we've ordered some beer by them, and we've also ordered Hackney. We do like Hackney, and we do like to visit them when we can. They're doing some good stuff.
I think Liverpool's quite criminally undersourced for bottle shops. You've got obviously pubs and bars who sell cans and bottles, but we've got one which is Londis on Penny Lane, which is a distance from us, but I'm not sure they do deliveries and stuff like that, but they do turn over a lot of beer. But we don't have that bottle shop culture in Liverpool anymore.
Any idea why? Because it's a massive area.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, say there's some of the bars do it, but I don't know. We had one or two, but I don't know whether they went down the wrong route and they started getting the wrong beers or
it was rent issues. I've no idea, but we've never had loads. And as I say, the ones we did, unfortunately, they've now gone. So with the exception of, there's a new one that's just open called Hall, which is also, it's not just a bottle shop you can sit in, you can have a drink.
That's what I'm saying, it's not solely a bottle shop.
Yeah, it's not standalone. So I don't know, and that's the sad thing, that in Liverpool there is not a specific standalone bottle shop that you can go into and buy your bottles.
Now, going back to obviously people buying beer from us, we have our online shop, which is great because we can get our beer out to your doorstep. But from our point of view, going back to what we said previously, the whole industry needs support. So we'd sooner, say for argument's sake, like Jules at Hop Hideout in Sheffield, she buys our cans rather. So we'd much sooner sell them to Jules, and then she can sell them on to the local people. So we make a bit of money, Jules makes a bit of money, and the end user in Sheffield gets our beer. We, as a business, we'd much sooner do that than people come directly to us. Now that sounds a strange thing to say because obviously we'll make more money selling direct, but without these bottle shops, I think Liverpool may well be. This might be one of the problems. People just didn't support them, because you can buy online, because you can buy from bigger online retailers that, you know, it's like the pub. If you don't support it, you'll lose it. If you don't support the bottle shop, especially at this time of, you know, when everyone's struggling, you know, you may well lose your local bottle shops as well.
Yeah. Pubs and bars and bottle shops are our bread and butter, and that will not change even now. And as Les says, yeah, we prefer to sell to them, but we don't have enough buying our beers. Even pubs doing takeouts or bottle shops or whatever. So we've got to support ourselves. So going back to what Cap and Collar said, that I can understand what they're saying about breweries, but for the likes of us, if we're not getting many distros taking our beer and spreading Neptune beer around, what are we supposed to do? At the same time, we've got to have some financial income coming in, and we want our beer to come out, you know. But if more people, did
but then
buy our beer, then we wouldn't have need to go online. I'm sure a lot of breweries are like that.
I think also I referenced a couple of other breweries when I was talking about your beers as well, is that I'm more likely to buy the one-off beers from people via a bottle shop, because I might not want a case of 12, 16, 20, 24. But because you guys have a very good core range, which again, I think I can say the same for the other breweries that I said I bought beer from. And then you might have some specials or seasonals that I can then chuck in as well. I think that also helps. There are some breweries who I don't want to buy a case of 12 from them or a box of 12 because I haven't really tried it. But I might go to the bottle shop and buy one of theirs, two of theirs, two of someone else's, three of someone else's. And I think that's the thing as well. That there is a balance, and I think it can work. But yeah, like you say, you're not suddenly putting casks and kegs of beer into pubs in your local area. So getting X amount of cans out means that you can still carry on producing, and hopefully bottle shops, can shops, whatever you want to call them these days, can still survive off the back of that. It's a tough balance, and as a consumer, it's a tough balance as well, because you want to support both.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, like Steve said, unless he's going to build his 10 out of beer cans, which, you know, I'm sure someone has somewhere.
It's possible, yeah. Beer can fort. That's what I want.
Yeah. You know, then you still have to make choices. And, you know, some of that is convenience, some of that is choice, some of that is your personal ethos. Like I said, I think people have started to recognise the value of local, whether that be beer, meat, bread, cheese, whatever your produce of choice might be. Not everyone will stick with it once things change again, but I think a percentage of people will. I also think that breweries, web shops and takeouts and those kind of things will also stay. So I think there's an adaptation of people's models from here on in.
Yeah.
But there is a different way of shopping, there's a different way of spending. There's room for everyone who's good at what they do.
Yeah.
I think the issue comes when maybe a brewery becomes a little bit more focused and says, well, you know what, actually, we're the only people that are going to sell our beer online, and then they stop distributing to everybody else. Because then you're, as you say, Martin, you've not got that option of saying, well, I can go to an online shop here and I can buy 4 cans of Abyss from Neptune, but I can also buy a couple of cans from this brewery, and I can buy a couple of bottles from this brewery, and I can have them all in a box. It's when that choice is taken away and the brewery says, no, the only place you can buy our beers from is us directly.
That'd be a shame if that happens.
That would be a massive shame, I think, because I think there's enough room, and I think we've seen a number of breweries as well that as they've gone into the online space in the last 9 months, that there are some out there that haven't just started selling their own beers; they've started selling guest beers as well from other breweries, and I think that's great to see. And I think again that just comes back to this wonderful community that we're in, where people just want to support each other and help each other out whenever they can. As always, that was just an absolute snapshot of some of the comments that we had on this poll. If you want to see all of the comments, there's a link to the poll question in the show notes. You can go through, click on that, and read through what everybody said. You can still get involved in this discussion. Use the hashtag Hopinions, and you may very well find yourself in this next part of the show.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
From John Rogers at JM Rogers 2000. Good to listen to Donkey Stone Brew from Greenfield being tasted and enjoyed in Essex. Didn't realise they'd established such a wide core range and still not taste them just around the corner in Uppermill. Sounds like a decent bottle and can selection. From Richard Taylor at Rich Taylor 1608. Guess it's time to buy a Christmas jumper and think about Christmas tunes. Loving that there will be a Crimbo Crawl this year. Virtually, but I'm not complaining. It's always great to meet people who listen to the show and put some faces to names and share beers together.
From your boy Rob Edwards at Rob Edwards 90, I'm worried about Martin after some of his comments about ice in beer. Maybe time for a new co-host. Not just yet, Rob, but I'm keeping an eye on things. If he comes out with any more of those mad questions like that one, then maybe. And then from Michael at Mick McGroarty, great show, guys. Already booked in for both Crimbo Crawl sessions.
From Pete at Hops and Hoops, great show, loved the outro track. When I worked at Flicker and Firkin in Richmond, West London, in the late 90s, we'd always play that at kicking out time. And from the Ale Lady, geez, you guys had me in bits this week talking about your final pub visits and that special feeling of togetherness that is unique to your local. Didn't realise quite how much I missed it. Just about recovered, and then you roll out Semi-Sonic for the outro.
Yeah, apologies for that, folks. It just seemed to be the right song to close the last show on. From Will Watkins at Dry Your Beers, cracking show, gents. That said, I'm going to have to stop listening if you talk about any more Treehouse or Pliny that I can't drink. On the shake in the can point, I did hear a brewer recommending it in an interview. He was saying if a centrifuge had been used, you should be able to do it to get more hop oils back in suspension without getting yeast in suspension. No idea how true that is. From Beer O'Clock Brewing at BO Brewing, great S&M show, guys. Interesting fact about New Zealand growing American hops. In 2016, New Zealand Cascade was renamed to Tahiki because it had become so different from the US version. Great shout from Rob for the Crimbo Crawl at home. I've signed up.
From Guzzler at Lagging Boat. Really enjoyed the podcast, chaps, but I was one of the foolish ones that bought the Full Beach Jaipur 15 gift pack. So you can imagine my delight at finding out that if I'd waited a little longer and only paid £10 more, I could have received all of these plus extra goodies. From Ian Hay at II Hay, excellent episode as always. A very emotional one though, an extraordinarily tricky time for so many.
From Lackbeer Bassie at Lackbeer Bassie, great podcast as usual. Thanks for the heads up on the Fuller's Vintage Ale 2020. Whilst listening to the podcast, I ordered some bottles. And then finally from Mark Johnson, interesting stuff as usual. Looking forward to the Neptune chat as well. Also looking forward to our 2021 Smoked American Hop special.
I bet you are, Mark. I wouldn't mind that one. How much Steve is looking forward to it? Questionable.
It's very, very questionable. We've had to open more Abyss, haven't we? While we're working our way through the second can of said Abyss, Julie, not only are you involved in Neptune Brewing, you're also involved in another little project, aren't you?
I am, yes. I am founder and contributor of Ladies at Beer, which was started in February 2015. Before Neptune went professional, if you like. It's a group, a social group, and it's also an education group supporting women who enjoy beer and trying to get more women learning and educating them on the merits of how good beer is.
And you say that's from 2015. So this, like you say, this was before Neptune became the brewery we know it.
Yeah, we were already home brewing, but it was just before Neptune became a professional brewery, if you like. It was an idea that I'd had for a while, and that was from visiting festivals, going out with friends and Les, and just looking round and thinking, bloody hell, where are all the women? Why are there so many women here? Or the women that were there, where some were drinking either wine or spirits. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I was just wondering, if it's a beer festival, why aren't women drinking beer? And then I even noticed more going into pubs, exactly the same thing, that there were women there. Ratio, there was more men to women, but again, there wasn't that many drinking beer, and I wanted to know why and see if I could put that straight. And that's really how it started. I put the idea to a group of my beer loving friends, and I said, this is what I'd like to do. Let's start as social media goes on and we can explore further avenues from there. And they were like, yeah, this sounds amazing. Let's do it. So every month, unfortunately, obviously COVID put pay to a lot of our meetups, but we go out once a month, Monday to Thursday, and we do those days due to the fact that pubs and bars need our support more through those days than they do on a Friday and a Saturday, because most people go to the pub then. So we're out supporting those days, and if we're supporting the bars and pubs, we're in turn supporting the breweries as well. So we do that Monday to Thursday, and then every couple of months we go on day trips, either on a Friday or either a Saturday or a Sunday, and we will visit various places: Sheffield, Manchester, Huddersfield. We've been to London. We travel around.
It sounds excellent, but I mean, Monday to Thursday, once a month, that's quite a session, 4 days a week. I mean, I admire your stamina, Jim. That is fantastic.
Well, what can I say? It was just great.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put some links in the show notes to where people can find out more about that, Julie, and hopefully get involved in what you're doing. In terms of Neptune, what's next for you folks? Obviously, you know, hopefully everything's pointing in the right direction, that in the next 6 to 12 months we might be returning to some sort of normality. Assuming that happens, where are you taking the brewery next?
I think obviously what this pandemic and this lockdown has proved, that I think small pack is something we're going to focus on a little bit more. I think the heart of the brewery will still be in draft, but I think we can certainly put more beer into cans, more beer than we normally do into cans, because there's a lot of beers we produce I've never seen a can in, ever. So there's a lot of beers we can put into can, and
specials we're going to do.
Yeah, some more special. We've got a couple of barrel aged beers, which are, well, we've actually got 4 I think on the go at the moment, and we may well just do them in small pack rather than there's 6 barrels of 4 beers. So we may well put those exclusively into small pack now rather than into draft. So more people get to try them as such, because normally, if we do a 200 litre barrel, it's only, 10 kegs, 8, 10 kegs, depending on, the size of what we can produce. So it ends up in a limited space. So I think that's what we will do. Hopefully 2021, we get to March, if we like, we can just reset to where we were in March 20. And we had tap takeovers lined up across the country. We had, I think, 3 in Newcastle. We had a couple in London and, other places. So hopefully we can just pick up those again and just spread this out a little bit more, get people a bit more aware of what we do and everything else. So it'd be nice if 2020 becomes forgotten to some degree for all the bad stuff, and we can focus on the positive things that we've managed to do, as in cans and stuff like that, and the online shop.
It'd be good to do some collaborations as well. There's some collaborations that we had in place, but unfortunately COVID put pay to that. There's some breweries that I would love to collab with as well, some of my favourite breweries, breweries that are brewing brilliant beer as well. So from that perspective, I think that would be amazing as well. But yeah, if we can expand the brewery as we plan to this year, that's certainly something that we do want to do. We've got the capacity to do that, haven't we? So,
and we had it would have been our 5th birthday in April, and we actually had.
Oh, it was.
It was our 5th birthday in April. We'd planned a lot of stuff around that. We've done. We had 5 collab beers planned, all at our brewery. We managed actually to get 4 of them done. But again, because of COVID, basically most of them ended up just coming out of the tap room, and they all went into draft. So again, it didn't really spread the love that much. We've rebrewed one of them so far. They're all really good beers. Really pleased with them. So we'll possibly do a 6th birthday instead of the 5th birthday that wasn't. We had some tap takeovers lined up and launches again across the country for that. So
our 500th brew.
Our 500th brew is also sitting there.
Is literally the tip. Every time we do something special, it seems to bloody get the kibosh on it.
Can you stop doing special stuff then? You're jinxing everything.
It's all our fault.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's all you. Where can people keep up to date with all things Neptune? Obviously, we'll put links in the show notes to your socials and to your website. But just
can I ask a question, Steve?
Shout out. Yeah.
One question. Literally, where can people find you? I don't mean online. Where are you?
We are in a place called McGull, which is 20 minutes outside Liverpool city centre. So that's where the brewery is, and that's where the tap room is as well. So you can jump on the train from Liverpool Central, and it's a 20-minute train ride and about a 20-25-minute walk. There's a taxi station which is 5 minutes away for about £3, and there's a couple of buses that will drop you off at the top of the road as well. So
if you put it into some sort of perspective, we're 1 train station away from Aintree.
Where can we find you online?
If you visit our social media sites, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook, and they will have links to our website, which also leads on to our online shop.
There will be links in the show notes to everywhere that you can find Neptune Brewery online, including their website where you can buy the range of fantastic beers that we've tried this evening. We just need to do some final thoughts on the second can of the piss that we sneaked into our glass. I don't think my thoughts are much different from when we first tried it. It is an absolutely delicious stout coming in at 5%. It's just everything I want. It's really smooth. It's got that creamy edge to it, and there's just a lovely balanced roastiness at the end of it. That's exactly what I want. Mine.
Yeah, and it's got that little touch of sweetness as well, which it just feels natural rather than added with adjuncts, lactose, etc. I mean, we've cracked up. Well, I've practically finished my second can as well, Steve. We still haven't finished the show, so I think that says everything you need to know about this beer.
Yes, it's been absolutely delicious. I've really enjoyed it. We would love to hear people's thoughts on this week's show. Use the hashtag Hopinions. Continue to get involved. Just a reminder that places for the Crimbo Crawl at home are still available for session 1. There's a link in the show notes to how you can get a place on session 1. The password that you need is warm hugs. Just another mention for Beer Nation, which is coming towards the end of the year, which is us and a number of other podcasts in the UK, all talking about the state of beer in the UK right now and the impact that 2020 has had on that. Martin, what is coming next time?
In a break from recent tradition, it's a guest drinker again. So we are joined by Owen Walsh from Brussels Beer City. Going to discuss a few things, including the launch of his new book, all about all things Brussels and beer. And even though the beers, we're going to be trying some beers from Utopian, Signature Brew, and a special beer that Owen had a hand in for his Brussels Beer Project book. Looking forward to that one, especially.
Very much looking forward to that show. Looking forward to being joined by Owen as well. And if anyone's wondering, the reason why we're doing back-to-back guest drinkers is because the show after that is our wonderful end-of-year show where we look back over the year and get very, very drunk drinking
Yep.
very high ABV beers.
As tradition would have us do.
It would indeed. Julie, Les, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you on the show and to drink your beers. Thank you for sending them down to us. It has been a real pleasure, and I do hope that everything goes really well for you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us on. We've really enjoyed it, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's been brilliant.
And the only thing left to say is cheers.
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 Single-handed sailor, sailing away in the dark.
Anyway, online, where can people find you?
Right, okay, say that again.
Where
Steve.
can you find
Okay, so online, where do our listeners find you?
Hang on, I'll have to compose myself.
Okay, I'll ask the question again when you're ready.
Okay, hang on. Let me have a drink. Hang on.
Yeah, that's going to help.
I blame you for that.
I didn't do anything. I just said I wouldn't travel on a stag do tours.
Yeah, you wouldn't come to visit the brewery. Bloody hell, that was great.
No one was on a stag do.
Right,
Right,
okay.
well,
okay.
Right, hang on. 1, 2, 3, go.
Online, where can people find you?
Our website. Oh, for God's sake.
I'm trying my hardest to be like professional here. Just why everything's falling apart around me.
It's just the way you're saying it, Steve. You're making me laugh.
Sorry, Martin. Maybe you should try it.
He's even worse. He's still gone, look.
I can give it a go.
Yeah, give it a go. See if you make Julie laugh.
Hang on. Right, okay. Go on. I've got my serious face now.
So, Julie and Les, where can we find you online?
If you go to www.neptunebrewery.com, you'll find our website, which will give you information on the styles of beers do. No.
What we to do it? I tell you what, it's good, that double dry up IPA.
Okay, give me one more go. Right, I'm serious now.
Okay, Martin, you're going to have to introduce it again because apparently I'll make Julie laugh.
All the links are on the website. That's what you need to say. All the links are on the website.
Well, actually, you don't even have to say the website. You can just go your Twitter and
tell us-
Instagram handle.
Tell us where we can find you on Twitter, and then I'll
Yeah.
put a link to show notes.
And because your Twitter will have the link anyway. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then. 1, 2, 3.